I love it when normies hear just a second of, and somehow that's enough to call the whole thing death metal. What's up? I'm Andrew from the band Ripped to Shreds, and today we are looking at metal music from Final Fantasy X. Uematsu Nobuo, the composer for the Final Fantasy series from 1986 until 2004, is known for his playful yet emotional music that spans many styles. And Final Fantasy X would feature the most unique experiment in his entire catalog, a death metal song. What inspired his foray into death metal? Well, nothing. Actually, there's no evidence that Uematsu ever listened to death metal or even metal bands in general, aside from edge cases like Deep Purple. What we do have is an interview where he describes it as a rock song. The death metal or screamo label seems like it comes from the typical normie reaction to anything with harsh vocals. So let's look at what makes Otherworld only a rock song and come up with some of our own changes to try and turn it into a real death metal tune. I'm down-tuned to B standard from C sharp standard for my own convenience. The intro starts with a pair of eighth note unison hits punctuated by a double stop bend that targets the root, then the fifth, then the root again. This crash accent into drum fill is something you'd hear in metal, but usually as part of a breakdown, and not an intro. Think like Slayer's Raining Blood. Quick word from your sponsor, it's me again. Today, the new Heavy Metal Shrapnel album is out. CDs are available and shipping now. The vinyl, it's on its way to our warehouse from the manufacturing plant. So please check out the links in the description. It's on all the streaming services, on Bandcamp, all that good shit. Fucking hair metal with Mark Bowles. Check it out, thanks. And it's kind of unnatural to hear it without the riff going on in the second guitar, like this. That's how I would expect to hear it as a metal riff, or at least without the double stop bend and only the drum fills. Then we have this turnaround lick where the intro loops, and in eighth notes we get 6-5, 6-5, 6-5, 3, or F E F E F E D before coming back to the B. I don't know. I think that riff just kind of sucks. It's like a nothing kind of riff. In conjunction with the cinematic, what it really reminds me of is a lot of the new metal that you would hear in like a WWE entrance music, the early 2000s. I think the pedal notes falling on the 1 and the 3, with the melody notes on the 2 and the 4, give it such a 4 on the floor feeling. And the tempo, which is 140 BPM, with the snare accenting the melody notes, makes it feel even more listless. I almost expect to hear the kick in straight eighth notes, like this. And that just sounds like Slipknot to me. Here it's really the snare accent that's driving the feel. If I try replacing the beat with a punk beat, and the snare is now on every single offbeat, the energy has improved a lot. But the riff itself is still really butt rocky and doesn't sound death metal. Even if we were to replace the eighth note chugs with 16th notes, it doesn't sound quite right. With double bass, it sounds maybe a little bit like Jungle Rot, but in general, I would avoid this kind of 4 on the floor feeling if I'm trying to make death metal. Now, if we double the length of all the note values, we can get something a little more like you would hear on the first 2 Death records. Or if we crank the tempo to 220 and play a skank beat on it, we could use the same notes and come up with something that sounds a little bit like early Pestilence. Or how about early Bolt Thrower? Really, you could take any collection of pitches, and if you phrase it right, you can make something that sounds death metal. But I would swap out most of the F sharps in favor of F naturals for that flat 5, and also flat C sharp to C for that flat 2 feeling. And I guess I would also avoid emphasizing the E, the 4th, and try to only use it as a passing tone. Like if I slide up to the flat 5, emphasizing it in this 5-3 power chord sounds funny to me. Remember, what makes something metal has nothing to do with the distortion or apparent heaviness, but whether or not it's idiomatic for the style. You could have the wimpiest Euro power bullshit with 4-part vocal harmony chorus. But it's still metal. But on the other hand, you could also have this incredibly heavy and dissonant blasting. But this isn't metal at all. Coming back to Otherworld, you might think that following these general guidelines would make death metal predictable. But you need to understand what death metal sounds like and how to achieve those sounds before you can effectively subvert those expectations and make something truly unique. Maybe in the 80s, when the genres were more fluid, you could have written something heavy from first principles, and that would be retroactively considered death metal. But today, I think the genre is too ossified to really follow that kind of approach. In 2002, Uematsu formed the band called the Black Mages with some of his colleagues at Square. They reinterpreted a bunch of Final Fantasy tunes in the style of instrumental prog rock, kind of similar to Yes, and a bit like Symphony X in some parts. Otherworld was re-recorded on their second album, The Skies Above, in 2004. And I think Otherworld makes way more sense in this re-recorded context. The tempo is cranked up to 155. They tune up to E standard from C sharp, and with the classic B3 organ wailing away over the riff, instantly sounds like Deep Purple. Although I love most of the Final Fantasy X soundtrack, Otherworld always felt really clumsy to me, and if I'm listening to the OST, I would skip it. This makes sense to me because Uematsu isn't a guitarist, he's a keyboardist. I'm sure he's dabbled in guitar and has like a passing familiarity with all the orchestral instruments, so he can arrange them more effectively. But it doesn't sound like he knows idiomatic guitar vocabulary, especially in a metal or hard rock context. Black Mages was founded by Sekiro Tsuyoshi, who plays guitar as a first instrument and is a Dream Theater fan, and Fukui Kenichiro, before they brought Uematsu in. So I think it's Sekiro's rock background that makes the Black Mages arrangements work so well in their new context. The biggest arrangement change, obviously, is the vocals. They brought in Hamano Kazuko to sing, and they wrote new melodies for the lyrics. The original vocal performance, I think, is the main culprit for people calling Otherworld death metal.
Don't you give up on it. You got the head that feeds you.
So for the longest time, I assumed that Bill X Till I Die X Muir was like a fake person that Square had made up, that it was just like a random employee yelling into a distorted mic to capitalize on nu metal's popularity in the early 2000s. The delivery is staccato and stilted, and it doesn't sound like they have good control of their harshes. There's a Discogs entry for their demo, but no one seems to own a copy. And there's no references to the band on Japanese Twitter or Google, but someone recently uploaded a rip of Till I Die's 2000 tape demo, so it would seem like the band was actually real. When we listen to it, it's like passable youth crew hardcore type stuff, but the vocals sound much more accomplished, especially compared to what he did on Otherworld. If we look at this interview from the Square translator, Uematsu actually notated the rhythms that he wanted and showed where every single word was supposed to go. And the same rhythm was used for the lyrics in the Black Mages arrangement. So I think we can excuse Bill Muir his stilted delivery. But like on a fundamental level, this bum, 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 that rhythm is really sing-songy. I keep coming back to that jungle rock comparison where this could work in a lame sort of way.
Go now if you want it. Oh, it's you. Don't you get up on it. You must let the finish you.
I'm not trying to dump on Jungle Rot. They've got some great jams, but their B-sides kind of suck, and Otherworld played like this would be like a filler song on a B-side. I think when you're approaching vocals as a death metal vocalist, in general, you have to hold these out much longer, kind of like Coffins. This is something I might do if this were arranged as a Coffins tune. So there's a very short list of video games that have metal music in them, and fewer still that have metal music I actually enjoy listening to. Why are there so few games with metal soundtracks? Well, video game music, much like film music, has an important function: to enhance the images on the screen and provide additional emotional context. The music should immerse the viewer into the scene. It tells you when to feel sad, when to be happy, nostalgic. It tells you the battles are urgent and epic, and that the abandoned factory is creepy, and there's danger lurking around every corner. Although I've devoted my whole life to metal, it has an extremely limited emotional palette. It can evoke a specific kind of 80s nostalgia with training montages if we're working with famous hair metal songs.
Whoa! Hey, hold that tarmac down till we get back, brother, alright? Hey, get up there, boys.
Maybe marching out to war with Manowar or other epic US power metal. Maybe chaotic and angry, like when they used Gridlink for war crimes against prisoners on the TV series Homeland. What it doesn't do is heart-wrenching sadness or overwhelming joy. I mean, I could see Warning or Bell Witch. You know, they might work for a walking simulator with like themes of solitude, but real death metal doesn't fit neatly into any use case, aside from like rhythm games, or maybe games about music or about being in bands. So why does metal work in the original Doom? I think expectations for PC video games were very different in 1993, especially in an action game where each level was not concerned about telling a story or providing emotional beats, but instead just being a playground where you would blow up demons and solve puzzles. And having a short loop of music playing while you were trying to solve a map with an average par time under 2 minutes was okay. And even then, I find the ambient tracks like E1 M3 to better suit the atmosphere of Doom. A custom playlist like this may be fun for me because I like those songs, but from a game design point of view, I think it would be basically totally meaningless to the average gamer. So we come to Doom 2016, which really revived the franchise and put metal back on the video game music map. While I would never listen to Mick Gordon's soundtrack by itself, I think it perfectly suits the evolution of Doom from a simple arcade shooter with no plot at all to a game that tries to tell a story and have the appropriate emotional atmosphere for every section of the game. The heavy guitar parts are restricted only to combat, and everything else is like these industrial and ambient synths. And all the heavy parts are like over a halftime snare and often no drums at all, which I think gives the game a lot of flexibility. A floaty or ambiguous tempo allows the game to like fade the music in and out as needed for like dialogue or animations or pause menus without being jarring. But if you had a strict tuka 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 skank beat or even like a blast beat and it was fading in and out of the music, I think that would sound really unnatural. And on top of that, I think a fast tempo would make the gameplay less weighty. The problem here is real metal doesn't suit the goals of the game. I actually wanted to work on my own video game, either like a visual novel or like a Disco Elysium type game about a metal band trying to make it in a post-apocalyptic Fallout kind of world, but I'm doing way too much shit, so I just never found time to really explore. I think that type of game is something where you could probably put in a lot of real metal, cool metal that people like us actually like listening to, and it would fit. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for today. So, what do I have to plug? Heavy Metal Shrapnel album out today, right now. Check the links in the description, listen to it. I'll be on tour as HOUKAGO Grind Time in China next week. Check all the dates below too. And on the 24th of April, I will be playing Deadstock in San Luis Obispo. Mormon Mincers is also playing. There's a whole bunch of great regional grindcore. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. As always, eat ass, blast fast, and peace.